All right, hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I go by the name of the Undisputed Champ, and this is my introduction video. So yeah, I thought this would be a great time to start making boxing videos. I've been watching boxing videos for years now, and I'm gonna tell you a lot, basically how I got into boxing as a sport, how I got into following it, and how I've got to the point I am now with wanting to start a channel and to talk about boxing. So, firstly, with me getting into boxing, it started off, the person that pulled me in was the one and only Floyd Mayweather Jr. I remember when I was a lot younger, not to give away my age too tough, but yeah, when I was a lot younger, I remember the Floyd Mayweather Ricky Hatton fight, and that was the first time a boxing fight had captivated me personally, without the influence of parents or older fan members or anything like that. That was the first fight where I was captivated by myself. I remember all the lead up to the fight, the press conferences, and I remember Mayweather turning up in a Manchester United top to Manchester, and obviously Ricky Hatton's a big Manchester City fan, and just to antagonise the crowd. I remember him being brash, flashy, and I remember thinking, Ricky Hatton, he's gonna knock this brash, flashy American out. He's gonna cream this guy. But we all know what happened in the fight. Floyd Mayweather prevailed with sublime skills, sublime boxing, and got the stoppage. And it was that fight there that sucked me in. So after that, I started to follow Mayweather's career. I would watch every time Mayweather had a fight, and I thought, this isn't enough. And Mayweather was doing that stupid thing where he'd retire, unretire, all of that nonsense. So he was quite inactive in that period, and it wasn't enough. So I had to fill it with more. I had to fill it with more. And then I'd watch other people's fight. Then I'd have a close eye on, okay, what's Joe Calzaghe doing? Interesting fight. Okay, then he'd retire, and then I'd be like, okay, who's next? Who am I gonna follow next? And I'd think, okay, I saw him fight Bernard Hopkins. What's Bernard Hopkins doing? Oh, what other British fighters are on the scene? And that's what sort of sucked me in. I'd probably say the first boxer I remember vividly on my own, this before I was into boxing, was probably Lennox Lewis. And I remember my parents being big Lennox Lewis fans, especially my dad, and we'd watch Lennox Lewis fights. And I wouldn't really know too tough what was going on, but I remember Lennox Lewis always being on when Lennox Lewis fought. And yeah, that's basically how I got into boxing. I just had a craving for it after those fights, and I had to just watch more, listen more. Then I stumbled upon all the boxing channels on YouTube. I'm gonna pay homage to a couple people that I followed, and they've educated me on boxing through watching their videos on YouTube. People like Boxing Beats and Rhymes. He is a great boxing historian. I really like his viewpoints and what he's got to say on boxing. It's very unique, very. He's got his own opinion, which is what I like. He's not seemed to be influenced by other people. He seems to have his own opinion. So Boxing Beats and Rhymes, Hatman Boxing, another guy, a great YouTube boxing channel even. And I just really like his opinions. I like what he says. Gets to the point, gets to the meat of what he wants to say quickly. So another good channel. Another channel that really sort of got me back into boxing as well was Box Talk, and that was with two guys called Ade and Ryan. I know Ade has his own channel now, but it was Ade and Ryan back then, and those two, their vibe was 10-10. Like, they just used to bounce off each other. They would just infuse me for boxing. And then they used to do This Week in Boxing, and they'd go over all the main points on a Sunday. Mind me, I'm just having a drink there. They go over all the main points on a Sunday. They review boxing. They review the big fights, and yeah, that was great, man. It's a shame that that channel's not together, but Adi has his own channel now, and I follow him, and he's doing some good videos too. Another channel that I used to really enjoy back in the day, not so much anymore, but it's, I guess, if you like where he's heading now, it might be for you. 78 Sports TV. He used to fill me in on the American side of boxing. I used to like the content that he put out there. As I say, not so much anymore, but he still might appeal to some people. And yeah, those are a few of the boxing channels that sort of, I'd say, influenced me to want to start my own boxing channel and to just share my own viewpoints. I more want to be on here just so I can mix with other people in the YouTube boxing community, and just have some debates. Oh, you know what? I just remembered a couple of other people like Mr. Boxing Today, another Mr. Heavyweight Boxing Today, sorry, another great YouTube channel, Heavyweight Boxing. He's the guy on YouTube for heavyweight boxing, and I really like his viewpoints. And EJ Boxing Live as well. Pardon me, another great channel. He just hits the nail on the head. He's quite entertaining, and yeah. So those are the few guys that have influenced me. Anyway, that's probably enough about my little intro into how I got into boxing. I want to make the basis of this video, my first ever video, it's gonna be on the state of the heavyweight division, and in particular the top 10 of the heavyweight division. So I've gone and got a ranking. I've used Ring Magazine rankings because the sanctioning bodies rankings are just all over the place. People are ranked here, there, everywhere. Some people are not ranked in some sanctioning bodies. Champions aren't ranked in all the sanctioning bodies. It's just silly. So even though Ring's not perfect, it's not a perfect ranking. It's not even an organization, but it's not a perfect ranking. And some of the people in the list I would move around. I'm pretty happy with their top 10/11 people that they have in their list. And yeah, in this we're gonna run down the top 10 heavyweights according to Ring Mag. Well, top 11 heavyweights because they rank the champions as separate. We're gonna go down the top 11 heavyweights in the Ring Magazine rankings, and I just thought it'd be interesting for me to basically talk about those heavyweights' best wins, those heavyweights' biggest losses, and whether they're maximizing their career at the current time as a heavyweight. It's a really interesting time in heavyweight boxing, and as a heavyweight, you want to be making the most of this. It's not always like this. We've seen in other eras where it's not been popping like this. Like if we go back to the Klitschko era, the heavyweight division wasn't popping like that. It just wasn't. It was a depressed era. It had two brothers, the Klitschko brothers, ruling the roost. No one could basically challenge them or talk to them, and the division was depressed. If we look at the top challengers from back then, like Tony Thompson getting cleaned out by most of the heavies on my list, if not all of them, and he was a top contender back then. People like Eddie Chambers. Eddie Chambers is getting knocked out by everyone in the top 10 Ring Magazine rankings. Eddie Chambers is getting stopped by all of them. Not to say that he's a bad fighter, but he's a small guy, not much power. Yeah, Eddie Chambers getting stopped by top 10. That shows you the state of that division back then. So the division now is definitely hot. It's active, and yeah, let's get into this. All right. So we're gonna start off with the Ring Magazine champion, the Mr. quote unquote lineal champion, the Mr. Gypsy King Tyson Fury. So he's got a record of 33 wins, 1 draw, 0 losses. He's an interesting one because his best win, he's got 2 big wins in his career, and it's kind of split, to be honest. He's got the win over Klitschko with 12-round UD, and he's got the Wilder stoppage. And it is very tight for me to say what was their best win, because when he beat Klitschko was the champ. I picked Klitschko to win that fight by knockout. Klitschko was the not undisputed, but the long reigning champ. He had 3 belts. He kind of was looking untouchable, and he was coming off a Kubrat Pulev win where the leaping left hook, we never seen Klitschko throw before, leaping left hook from L that to just take Pulev's head off. So he had the Jennings fight after the Pulev fight where he didn't look as impressive, but he was back in Germany. He had the home crowd. It was looking like Klitschko's fight, and Fury just went in there and schooled him. Klitschko left his boxing right hand and left hand at home. Fury absolutely schooled him in that fight. And the second Wilder fight was another great performance from Fury, to be fair. After seeing the first one, which was, I thought Fury won the first fight. So that kind of takes away a little bit from the second Wilder fight, the knockout, because I've seen Fury, in my eyes, beaten before. I've seen Wilder's susceptible to just being outboxed. So he beat him, but in my eyes, outboxing him, even though he got a draw. But then to get the knockout, to change his whole style and go out there and get the knockout, to school Wilder again and to get the knockout, very, very impressive. So for me, I'm going to edge to Klitschko, and I'm going to give Klitschko that as Fury's biggest win. A story to say with Fury actually and the Fury Klitschko fight. So Fury had been in a lot of Vladimir Klitschko camps, and there was a time where Klitschko, he would sit in the sauna, and all the other boxers that he'd brought in, all the other sparring partners that he'd brought into the camp would come and sit in the sauna for a bit, but they'd always leave before Klitschko left. This is Tyson Fury's words, by the way. They'd always leave before Klitschko left, and Klitschko would always be the last one to leave, just, you know, to have a psychological edge over all his sparring partners who potentially in the future are going to be his opponents, because he fought AJ, he fought Fury, and he's had a lot of the contenders that are around today in his camps. So Fury, he went into that sauna with Vladimir, and all the other sparring partners had left. It's just him and Vlad, and they sat in there, and it was getting hotter and hotter. And according to Fury, Vlad went and added a couple more coals to the fire, you know, to heat up the place, probably to try and force Fury out. But Fury said, "I'd rather die in this sauna, die of dehydration, or however else you can die in a sauna, then leave before Klitschko leaves this sauna." And lo and behold, according to Fury, Klitschko left the sauna first before he did. And he said that mental edge, he took that with him into that fight. So Fury's the king of mind games. He's the king of mind games in the heavyweight division anyway. Probably if it was all divisions, another one that was king of mind games. Floyd Mayweather, another king of mind games. And then George Groves, another mastermind of mind games. Carl Froch still having nightmares now. I know he got the knockout, but he's still having nightmares about Groves. I don't care. So Fury's biggest loss. Well, he's actually had no losses, but if you go back through his record, he's had a couple of people he's fought twice. Wilder being one, and John McDermott being another. So I've gone back and I've seen that John McDermott one fight, and I'm gonna have to say, Fury, you lost that fight, man. You got the decision, but you lost that fight. Fury looked like trash in that fight. McDermott was knocking him all around the ring, making him look sloppy, making him look silly. He looked awful in that fight. And to be honest, he shouldn't have got the decision. If you go back, you can see some articles where they're saying that this is a robbery, this is a farce, blah, blah, blah. Fury was the bigger name, so he got the push at the time. And yeah, John McDermott didn't get the decision. They had a rematch. Fury looked a lot more comfortable in the rematch and won comfortably. And so you can say, even if he had lost the fight, he'd proven that he can beat John McDermott. But on his column, it says 0, and it should say 1 in that loss column. Anyways, moving off the Ring Magazine champ to Mr. AJ Anthony Joshua. He's 23 wins, 1 loss, 0 draws. I could probably say he's had a huge hand in restoring the heavyweight division back to prominence, putting the heavyweight division back on the mainstream scene, and making boxing relevant again, especially in the UK. He kind of single-handedly brought back boxing. So I would say AJ, big props for that. Moving on to his biggest win. So AJ's biggest win. He's had a few interesting wins. Obviously, he beat Parker. He beat Ruiz in a rematch. He beat Dylan White. He's beat a couple of guys in this heavyweight. He's beat Povetkin. Like, he's got some names on the ledger, but his biggest win for me anyway would be the Vladimir Klitschko win. Even though it was an older Klitschko than the one Fury fought, Klitschko came in excellent shape. If you look at that pre-fight workout, I don't even normally watch the pre-fight workouts, to be honest, but for some reason I was just bored that day. I was interested in the fight and I just put it on, and I was just captivated. I was, who's this Klitschko? He was bouncing around the ring. He was skipping rope like I never, man possessed. And then he spent about 15 minutes getting his hands wrapped, and he was throwing fluid punches onto the pads. I was like, Klitschko's looking in great. I was nearly ready to change my pick. I originally picked AJ by KO, but I was gonna change my pick. I was like, who's this Klitschko? And then lo and behold, in the fight, Klitschko was winning the fight till he got stopped. He was outboxing AJ early, then AJ clipped him in like the 5th or 6th round, can't really remember. Dropped him, and then he went and dropped AJ heavily, and then proceeded to school AJ a bit in there. But AJ came through and got the KO, so it was an extremely tough fight for him. But that's definitely his biggest win. And I think that Klitschko, even though Klitschko always comes in great shape, props to him for that throughout his whole career. I think that Klitschko looked more fluid than the Fury Klitschko. Possibly because Fury made Klitschko leave his boxing hands at home, but I don't know, it just looked more fluid to me. AJ's biggest loss, well, he's got one loss on his ledger, and it is the Andy Ruiz Jr. loss. This is one of the biggest losses in heavyweight history. It was shocking at the time. Made news all around the world. Show you how big of a star AJ is, but made news all around the world. And I actually think that KO is on, like, it was AJ's fault that it happened. If you go back and look at what was happening around that time, Wilder and AJ were negotiating a fight, and I think Wilder turned that off as AJ. To be honest, when it comes to all that, I don't really care. I just want to see the fight. That's all. The fight hadn't materialized, and Wilder went to fight Brazil, and he nearly sent Brazil to the gods. He stole Brazil's soul with that knockout. Had Brazil looking crazy in there, and he did that in 2 rounds, and that was the week before AJ's fight. This is AJ's first fight in the US, wants to make a statement, wants to be impressive, and I think he went in there to take Andy Ruiz's head off. Throwing, to be fair, he looked compact in the first 2 rounds, and in that 3rd round, after hurting Ruiz a bit, just going hell for leather for that KO, swinging wide with the hooks, and Ruiz went in between them hooks with his super fast hands for a heavyweight, and just, knocked AJ down, and that was the beginning of the end for AJ in that fight. He got too trigger happy, got caught, and got knocked out later, got stopped later on in the fight. So AJ, he made the necessary adjustments and won a rematch. Great props to him for that. But the KO was on him, in my opinion. Moving on to number 3 on the list, we have Deontay Bronze Bomber Wilder. I don't know why he got a super introduction, but whatever, innit? He's got a record of 42 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. Deontay's best win. Even though Deontay had been quite a long reigning WBC heavyweight champ, his record is dead. His record is dead. His best win is probably Ortiz. You can toss up the Ortiz 1 fight or the Ortiz 2 fight. In both fights, he was losing the fight until he came out with that right hand in both fights to stop Ortiz. So fair play. He's obviously got crazy knockout power. But looking down the rest of that record, Duopa, he's looked like trash ever since the Wilder fight. Brazil, already been stopped. Gerald Washington, I never really rated him, especially when he couldn't conclusively beat Amir Mansour, a really small heavyweight, really cruiserweight. So Wilder's record is padded. His biggest loss is definitely the Fury. Well, his one and only loss which is the Fury 2 loss. I think he should have lost the first Fury fight also. But anyways, he got a draw there. The second one, he got outboxed, got outslipped, got outfought. I think Fury showed more heart. I gave Wilder props for showing heart because he didn't want to give up, but Fury was braver than Wilder in the fight. Fury stepped forward and gave it to Wilder. Wilder didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to change his game plan. He has no back foot game. He showed a jab in the first fight with Bermane Stiverne. That jab's never seemed to return. But yeah, I don't think Wilder was brave enough to take the risk in that fight to try something different. That's why I say I don't think he was brave. He was brave because he didn't want to give up. Fair enough, he has heart there, but he wasn't brave enough to try something different in the fight. And yeah, Fury just beat the brakes off him. Beat the absolute brakes off him. It's had him probably scared to come back to boxing. If I'm completely honest, we haven't seen Wilder in the ring since. We haven't seen him really attempt to get into a ring since, and it's a shame. But anyways, he's still ranked number 3, so we'll see what happens to his career going forward. Moving on to number 4, we have the Beast from the East. I was going to say the Far East there, but he's not Asian. Alexander Povetkin. He's got a record of 36-2-1. He is a battle-hardened Russian. He's been through it all. He's seen it all. He's a smaller heavyweight, but boy, him and Wilder, but especially him, he has some of the best knockout reel I've ever seen. His knockouts just look vicious, absolutely vicious. I'll probably say his best win is the Dillian Whyte fight, which was recently to this video. He was getting outboxed in the fight and pulled out an uppercut from absolute hell, from the depths of Hades, pulled an uppercut out and just turned Dillian Whyte off. Just night Dillian Whyte. And he's got some other just crazy like the Carlos Takam knockout. They were having a great little fight there and just knocked him out. Just knocked him out cold. He's got the Duapas knockout. Again, to be fair, he was looking comfortable in that fight, and then just knocked Duapas out. Just cleaned him out. On your backside, buddy. Yeah, some of Povetkin's knockouts, man. Flip it, heck. I don't... Boy. Anyways, yeah, the Dillian Whyte fight, definitely his best. Even though he has been a champ before, but to be fair, he's not really fought. His record is okay. He's fought a lot of guys, but in the win column, he's not got that many great names. His biggest loss, he's got 2 losses, both the one to AJ, one to Klitschko. I'd probably say the Klitschko loss was probably a bigger loss to him, mainly because they went to purse bids. Klitschko normally always win the purse bids back then. This when Klitschko was moving like a super champ, and yeah, Povetkin's promoter won the purse bids, took the fight to Russia, so Povetkin had the fight in his backyard. We would have thought would have had the referee, but definitely didn't have the referee. Klitschko 100% had the referee because he was doing a hell of a lot of holding, and he would have just been really disappointed with his effort in that. Like, he tried his best, but it just couldn't get off, couldn't get anything going. So I'd probably say that was his biggest loss. And he was fresher back then as well. He was more in his prime than he is now. He's older, like he's 40 now. He's an old heavyweight, but a wily old veteran. Wily. Ugh, I'm still thinking of his knockouts, boy. Anyways, moving on to number 5. We've got the body snatcher, Dillian Whyte. He's got a record of 27 wins, 2 losses, 0 draws. You're going to start to see a pattern emerge with this list. And this pattern emerging shows you that the heavyweight division is on fire at the moment. Like, it's firing in the heavyweight division because people are fighting other people. I'm going to start saying names that you've heard before who are their biggest losses and their best wins, etc., etc. And that means that people are fighting other people. And this is the state of the division that you want. You want the best to be fighting the best. You want there to be active competition. And it's the only way we're going to find out who is the best fighter. Because even though we have a ranking here, we still haven't decided who is the best fighter out of all of them. So, yeah, I'm glad that the division's heading in this direction. People are around a similar sort of age. We have a couple of outliers with Povetkin, but the rest of the division are pretty much similar in age. Maybe Povetkin and Ortiz, but the rest of the division are similar in age. And yeah, it's firing, man. It's firing. So Dillian Whyte's best win, I'll probably say Joseph Parker, former world champ when he fought him. It was a risky fight for Dillian, to be fair, and he took the fight, knocked Joseph Parker down. I think one of the knockdowns was kind of a slip, but the other one was a legit knockdown. And yeah, Parker took him all the way out. I know he got dropped in the final round, but he did enough to win the fight, and that is a big win. Definitely a big win for Dillian. His biggest loss, unfortunately, is the Povetkin loss, because Povetkin sent him to the other realm with that knockout. And even though Povetkin is a big name, Dillian was the favourite in the fight. Dillian was the one that was the mandatory for the WBC title. Dylan was the one that set, it's his pay-per-view. It was his fight to lose. He picked the fighter. It just and he was winning the fight until he got starched. Dylan's other loss even was to AJ, who also starched him. But Dylan's a game fighter, man. Look, when you get knocked out the way Dylan White's been knocked out, it's hard to come back from. It's hard. Wilder's already showing that. Wilder wasn't knocked out near as bad as the way Dylan White's been knocked out, and Wilder still hasn't returned. When you take brutal knockouts, they do something to you. They must do. I personally haven't taken a brutal knockout, but just even watching it, I'm just like, oh gosh. This is why boxers are animals, really. I don't know if you can mean animal in a good sense of the word, but like animals in the sense of like they're willing to give it their all, because the mentality you've got to have to get back in the ring after some of the knockouts these guys receive. Different gravy. They're built different to the average Joe. Completely built different. But yeah, that is his biggest loss. And they're supposed to have a rematch. We'll see when / if that ever happens. And I hope Dylan White can get that dub back, man. He's been waiting a long time for his shot. He did have an opportunity to fight AJ, which he turned down. And that fight would have been at Wembley. But he's been waiting for his WBC shot for a long time. And I hope he gets it, man. I hope he gets it. Moving on to number 6, we got King Kong, Luis Ortiz. He's got a record of 31 wins and 2 losses. This is another guy, when you actually deep dive into the record, there's not really much there. He's got a lot of wins, he's got a lot of stoppages, but the record's just not deep. And it's annoying, because when you say things about like these fighters on the list, like Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz, etc., you know that they can do more. They can do more than what they've done. Ortiz is a bit harder because now he's an aging fighter, but I know he has more in the tank. I know he does. He just hasn't, I guess, had the opportunity, or just hasn't had the opportunity in the fights. But anyways, his best win is probably Bryant Jennings. He stopped Bryant in the 7th. It was a good fight up until then, but I had Luis winning most of the rounds, and then he got a stoppage. And then his biggest loss, both losses came to Wilder. I'll probably say the one that probably hurts him more is that first Wilder loss, because he'd hurt Wilder in that fight. In the second Wilder fight, he never hurt, even though he's winning the fight, he was winning both fights till he got stopped, but he didn't hurt Wilder in the second fight. So Wilder was always fresh to land something on Ortiz and get him out of there, which he did. In the first one, he actually hurt Wilder. And in hurting him, I reckon that would have made him think, oh, I can stop this guy. I can go out there, I can stop this guy, and I can become the heavyweight champ. I can take everything. I can change my life here and now. But he didn't get the stoppage, and he ended up getting stopped. So yeah, Luis Ortiz. Now he's been stopped by Wilder twice. He just looks like damaged goods to me. He's still skilled, but he's much older. I don't know what's going on with that blood pressure medication, ped stuff that was going on over there, but I can't see him beating anyone above him in the rankings. That's Fury, AJ, Wilder, Povetkin, White, and even the people below him. I think if they get into the ring with Ortiz, maybe bar one of the guys I'm going to mention, they probably will beat him as well. So only time will tell to see how long he stays at 6. In my rankings, he'd definitely be below 6. Next guy, we have the Mexican superstar, Andy Ruiz Jr. He has a record of 33 wins, 2 losses, and 0 draws. His best win, which has and is going to go down as one of the biggest upsets in heavyweight boxing history, is the AJ win. In that fight, he showed probably currently the best chin in the heavyweight division. He was eating shots from AJ, especially in that third round. In rounds 1 and 2, he was just getting outboxed, kept at the end of a jab, and then in round 3, he was eating hooks, eating shots, but his chin held up. He got dropped, but he got back up, and his chin held up, and his heart held up as well. Like, it's easy to get dropped and to give up, but he got dropped and he just said, I'm firing back. You're going to throw. I've got faster hands. I'm going to trust my boxing technique. I'm going to trust the skills that I built up over all these years, and I'm going to fire back. And that's exactly what he did. And he caught AJ and he changed his whole life. He changed the fortunes of his family. He changed his legacy in one fight. He changed his whole life. And yeah, amazing win, man. Amazing win. His biggest loss, his most disappointing loss, he lost to Parker in a tight fight. I think I had it a draw when I scored it. I remember waking up early for that fight. They had the fight in New Zealand. I woke up early. I was like, oh yeah, Parker Ruiz in the morning. This is live. Got my laptop up, got the fight up, watched the fight. It was actually a really captivating fight, but I thought Ruiz just edged it, or it was a draw. But Parker got the decision. I guess, look, Parker was in his hometown. It was Ruiz had to really have been looking for that knockout if he wanted to get out there with a belt. But that's not the loss I'll pick for his biggest loss. His bigger loss is definitely the AJ rematch. And not just for the fact that he lost the fight, because to be fair, AJ should have won the first fight, and AJ had made adjustments for the second fight. But it was just the way he came into the fight was just so disappointing. He came in horrible shape. He didn't look himself. I didn't even know what his game plan was. He was basically trying to recreate what happened in the first fight in worse shape, and it just didn't come off, and it's just super disappointing. Because if he'd have got that second dub, if he'd have beaten AJ for that second time, oh boy, the sky would have been the limit for Andy Ruiz, man. Because just of beating AJ the first time, he'd already got an audience with the president of Mexico. Like, he was on his way to being a global superstar. If he'd have got that second dub, oh my god, I don't even want to imagine what he could have done, man. He could have had the undisputed fight with Wilder. He could have, oh boy. But as I said, it's not even the fact that he's lost, it's just the manner in which he lost. Didn't put his heart into training, didn't come in shape. AJ just boxed his head off. Jab, 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 jab. Right hands here and there, move, move, move. Ruiz's slow feet couldn't catch up. Made his fast hands pretty much redundant, and AJ just won the fight, took it away from him. Anyway, glad he got his first payday. Shit, he probably got, if he can get some sort of shape back, he's still a force in this heavyweight division. Definitely, he's got lightning fast hands, especially for, oh gosh, coming like I don't know if you guys have ever seen. There's a fighter in Street Fighter. He's like he's a sumo wrestler, but when you press one of the combos, he throws like 15,000 punches in 10 seconds. That's kind of how Ruiz is looking when he's throwing punches at these heavyweights, just slapping them up. But yeah, moving on to someone who actually beat Andy Ruiz, as I said, comes and hails from New Zealand. Or should I say comes from Samoa by way of New Zealand? Or is it comes from New Zealand by way of Samoa? I don't really know. Basically, he's got Samoan ancestry and he lives in New Zealand. Joseph Parker. He's got a record of 27 wins, 2 draws. No, it's 27 wins, 2 losses, 0 draws. Interesting fighter. When he was coming up, I was really intrigued in Joseph Parker. I liked the stoppages that he was getting, even though the record wasn't that deep, but I don't know, he just looked like an interesting fighter. And then he fought Carlos Takam. And I was like, this is going to be a tough fight. I think I actually picked Takam. I thought Takam was going to go in there. He was going to either get the knockout or get the conclusive win. And Joseph Parker just showed he just grew up in that fight. Literally overnight, he grew up, because it wasn't an easy night. It wasn't like all these easy stoppages. He had to stay in there. He had to fight Takam to the last bell, and he did that, and he got the dub, and he deserved the win. And then came his best win just straight after that, the Andy Ruiz Jr. fight. It was for the WBO heavyweight title. This was a big step up for Parker from Takam, and it was definitely his hardest fight up to date. And he went in there, he showed heart, he fought all the way to the end. Even though I had it a draw or slightly edged Andy, he got the decision. He was in his hometown, and that's why you get fights in your hometown, because when it gets down to the wire, you're more than likely going to get favoured. That's why people try so hard to win purse bids and negotiate for fights in their hometowns. And that is why an away win is even better. If you can get an away win on points, boy, yeah, you really, really went in. You really went in, because hometown decisions are definitely real. especially in the UK. Parker's biggest loss. He's got two losses. He's got one loss to Dylan White and one loss to AJ. I'd probably say, I want to say the White loss, but he came on strong. And he came on strong. He came on strong. I'll probably say, I don't know though, because with the AJ fight, I don't know whether it was the way AJ boxed him made him not be able to get off, or he just wasn't there and he just couldn't get off. So I'm gonna go with his biggest slash most disappointing loss. I'm gonna go with the Dylan White loss, because he'd have probably gone into that fight thinking, yeah, I can win this. I can use White as a stepping stone. I can get back into the AJ contention, and he lost the fight. He came on strong near the end, but he lost the fight. So yeah, I'll go with the Dylan White fight. Number 9, we have Michael Hunter, or Michael the Bounty Hunter. He's got a record of 18 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. His best win, I would probably say, is split between Martin Bakole or Sergey Kuzman. You know what? I'm going to go with the Martin Bakole one, because Martin Bakole was undefeated at the time. He was getting hyped up. People were assuming Martin Bakole was going to run through Michael Hunter and just use Michael Hunter as a stepping stone just to pad his stats, his record, but that's not how it went. Michael went in there. One thing I'll say with Michael, he's got a hella heart, loads of heart. He went in there, he stood his ground, he fought Bakole, and he got the stoppage. First guy to stop Bakole. So big props to Michael there. That was a good win. The Sergio Kuzman win was a good win as well, because Kuzman had a very decent record at the time Hunter fought him. People saying it was a 50-50 fight, and he went in there and he beat Kuzman as well. So Michael, yeah, he's getting those wins up, man. Very underrated heavyweight, but he's getting those wins up. His biggest loss, well, he's only got 1 loss. It was to Usyk, and this was at cruiserweight. So we can say as a heavy, he's undefeated still. He lost to Usyk at cruiserweight. He pushed Usyk the whole way, and he tested him. It's one of Usyk's hardest fights, and Usyk is a master boxer in my opinion. He was the undisputed cruiserweight champion, so he was beating an undisputed cruiserweight like that. That's super rare. It's super rare. So fair play to Michael Hunter there, and I see him coming up this rankings. If you can get some fights against some of these people in this top 10, top 11 even, he's definitely gonna cause some issues. At number 10, we have Oscar Rivas. He's got a record of 26 wins, 1 loss. His biggest win is Bryant Jennings, a la Luis Ortiz. He fought a slightly older Bryant Jennings, and he stopped Bryant Jennings as well. It looked good, but all in all, Rivas's record doesn't have that many names on it. His biggest loss, most disappointing loss, his only loss, is Dylan White. He looked alright in the beginning of that Dylan White fight, but Dylan White dropped him. But then he dropped Dylan White, so it's like, actually, did Dylan White actually drop him? I can't even remember. I definitely remember him dropping Dylan White. That came completely out of the blue. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? What's White doing on the canvas? And he looked okay in that fight, but he just didn't show enough. He didn't show enough. And there was some PED controversy around that fight with Dylan White as well. So I don't know. Maybe that loss can have a question mark next to it. But Oscar Rivas, to be honest, everyone above him in the list, I see beating him. So I don't really see him going anywhere than this. This is probably the highlight of his career. To be honest, there's people below him. And the next guy I'm going to say, and the last guy, he probably beats him too. So yeah, this is probably it for Oscar Rivas at this level. Unless he pulls off a heavy upset. And number 11, last on the list, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Kubrat Pulev. He has a record of 28 wins and 1 loss. Funny thing about Pulev, actually, when I was at uni, I had a job. I used to work in the canteen at uni, just as a part-time job. and I used to work with a Bulgarian girl, which is where actually is he from Bulgaria or Hungary? I'm gonna look like an idiot if I get this all wrong. I'm just gonna actually double check. I think he's from Bulgaria anyway. Yeah, Bulgarian heavyweight. You know, I should have just trusted myself. But yeah, he's a Bulgarian heavyweight, and she was from Bulgaria as well. And I was just making convo, you know, as you do, and I was like, oh, so do you know any sports stars from Bulgaria? Me knowing I only know two sports stars from Bulgaria, and she goes, no, not really. I don't really follow sports. So I was like, okay, let me try anyway. I was like, do you know who Berbatov is? She was like, oh, but I do know Berbatov, famous footballer, played for Manchester United. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. She knows Berbatov. And then I was like, do you know Kubrat Pulev? She was like, yes, I love Pulev. Blah blah blah. I was like, what? What is this girl who's never? Because I've tried to talk to her about boxing before. She had no idea about boxing. I mean, but she knows who Pulev is. So yeah, Kubrat Pulev is a big deal in Bulgaria, guys. Just to let you lot know, like, she was talking to me as if he was some super celeb out there. I was like, what's going on here? Kubrat Pulev, Mr. Jab himself. But yeah, anyways, back on topic. Pulev's best win. He's got two wins against British fighters, actually. He's got a win against Derek Chisora and a win against Hugh Fury. I'll probably say Chisora is the best win because, you know, the thing is, Hugh Fury's a good fighter too. Well, and I'd pick a prime Chisora over Hugh Fury right now. So I would say his best win is Derek Chisora. Yeah, he was typical old Pulev. Jab, jab, jab. A couple right hands here and there, but jab, jab, jab. It was a close fight. I think it was a split decision, and Derek thought he won the fight, but Derek thinks he's won every fight, and most of the fights he thinks he's won, he's lost. The only one that was he probably did win was the Robert Helenius. All the other ones that he thought he's won, he has lost. Objectively, he's lost. But yeah, that'd probably be his biggest win. Both boring fights, the Huey and the Chisora fight. To be honest, Pule's a pretty boring fighter. I can't even front. He's super boring. He's fighting AJ soon, and I'm like, look, AJ, man, you gotta get this guy out here early, or he's gonna be stinking up the place. I say his biggest loss and his most disappointing loss is the Klitschko loss. And the reason, well, it's his only loss, but the reason I emphasize disappointment in that fight, Pulev was talking hella smoke before that fight. Pulev was thinking he was going to come in here, destroy the Klitschko dynasty. He was going to come and take Klitschko's head off. He was coming to kill Klitschko in that fight. And that Klitschko we got in that fight, he was looking like the best Klitschko we've seen in years. Klitschko, as I said earlier, jumping in with leaping left hooks, flooring him from all angles. He started off flooring him, ended off flooring him, knocked him out, had Pulev just all over the place, taking deep breaths, thinking, what's happened to me here? Where's my head at? What's going on? Like, I've never been in this position before. Yeah, Klitschko came on job in that fight. He looked serious. He wasn't playing, and it was just a shame for Pulev because all the smoke he was talking before the fight, he just couldn't deliver. He just couldn't deliver it. I think mental mind games, I think Klitschko got in his head. He got deep into the crevice of Pulev's head. And on top of that, if you go and look up the fight, Pulev was only fighting for the IBF title. How crazy is that? This is a Klitschko that held the WBA, the WBO, and the IBF, and the Ring magazine, and Pulev is only fighting for the IBF. So Klitschko was already doing fuckeries before before the fight even commenced, and yeah, he got into Pulev's head and took Pulev out. So yeah, that concludes my Ring magazine top 10 plus the champion, or top 11, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, man. This is gonna be the start of a series I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna pick divisions that I like, and divisions that I know, because I actually don't know all the divisions inside out, but I'll do another division very soon. And yeah, I'm looking to talk about controversial fights and give you who I thought won. So picking some old fights and going through them, seeing how they went, picking who I thought was the winner, and just other things. Just talk about what's going on. I'll try and keep away from like talking too much about politics, because that stuff just bores me. I more want to get to talking about fights, talking about fighters, and maybe give a little bit of history as well, because I like that sort of stuff too. But yeah, let me know if you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you guys want to hear, man. I love boxing. It's become a big passion of mine, and I love talking about it as well. So yeah, I hope to get some engagement. Thanks, guys.